Hello, Alan Bass here, agronomist for LG Seeds in the state of Wisconsin. Here to talk to you about a few tips what to consider when chopping corn silage. Let's go in the field and take a look. Now that we're in the field, we got to determine what that plant moisture is. The easiest way to do that is by taking and chopping a few stalks, taking them down, grinding them up, and drying them down to find the moisture. But while we're in the field, there's a couple other indicators. One is found here on the ear. As we break apart ears here, we can look for what's called a milk line. A milk line is a white line across the kernel that'll determine its maturity and how far along it's coming for dry down. This particular ear has no milk line. You would see that right here across the kernel, you would see a white line called a milk line. We want that at 2/3 to 3/4 that way up the kernel in order to determine that. Another way is to look at the plant and determine how far along the maturity is. You can tell that by how it fires up from the bottom up. Sometimes you get some premature firing from drought-stricken areas. That means you have to go a little quicker with the chopping. In them cases, we like to chop it, like I said, at about 6-7 inches is about optimal for most silage. As we get in droughtier areas where we've had a lot of lack of moisture, we'll want to chop that a little higher. Nitrates are found in the lower third of the plant. The higher we can do, the lower the nitrate content of that plant. Two things in that as well is if you chop it a little higher, just in normal fields, if you go to that 18-20 inches, you'll optimize your quality of your silage, but you'll miss out on a lot of tonnage. So if you chop it in that regular 6-7 inches, that's where you'll get your most tonnage. There's a balancing thing you have to have there determined on what your usage for that product. Moisture needs to be between 60 and 70%. That's 65 to 68% ideal for most cases, like bunkers and some bags. Upright silos and harvesters, you're going to want them a little bit drier. But in order to do that, we got to determine how far along this corn is. What I got here in my hand is I got a cob of corn. And when we split it apart, we can kind of see across these kernels, as they get developed, we'll see what's called a milk line. Milk line's a little white line that runs across here, and you can see. We're going to want to chop this about 2/3 milk line. This corn in particular, as we look at this right here, this corn in particular has no milk line yet. We cannot see a white distinct mark across there. It's still just a little wet. Probably about 2 weeks away from chopping. A couple other indications we can find is if we look at the plants down towards the bottom, it'll start to fire up or start to mature from the bottom up. There we can start to see the moistures drop a little bit as they get a little older. This field in particular, pretty healthy. Got quite a bit of rain and is doing really well here going into the fall. So we're going to be a little delayed on as far as the moisture is concerned here on this plant. Some other tips on optimal, if you want peak quality, this field in particular is healthy green, as you can see. But the leaves, a lot of times, if you chop the corn, the leaves in the ear are where most of the nutrients are.